Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to picture this. You're right in the middle of a super high-pressure clinic day. Your next patient is clearly frustrated, your schedule is somehow already 20 minutes behind, and you can literally feel your own stress levels starting to spike. Right in that exact moment, your physical technique and all that anatomical knowledge you've crammed, they kind of have to take a back seat. Because right then, your emotional regulation and your interpersonal skills are absolutely crucial. They're just as vital as your hands-on treatment. So today, we're going to dive into how understanding your own personality traits actually gives you this massive clinical edge.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First up, we'll look at the power of self-awareness, followed by the 4 facets of self-awareness. Then, we'll dive into the MBTI personality framework and see exactly how your personality shapes that awareness. Finally, we'll cover the best methods for effective development and wrap up with applying your type to actual practice.
Okay, let's jump right into section 1, the power of self-awareness and why it goes way beyond just knowing yourself.
Let's completely rethink your clinical toolkit for a second. When you hear the word toolkit, you're probably picturing, goniometers, reflex hammers, or your standard diagnostic protocols. But honestly, what's the absolute most important tool you have? Spoiler alert, it's you. Your own mind, your split-second emotional reactions, and your level of self-awareness. Those are actually your primary instruments. You'll be using them every single day in the clinic.
And let's be super clear about what we mean here. Self-awareness is definitely not just some fluffy, feel-good buzzword. In healthcare, it is a hard, evidence-based clinical competency. The data explicitly links high self-awareness to improved psychological well-being, enhanced performance at work, and way more effective leadership. For us as physiotherapists, this literally translates to better, more empathetic patient interactions and just much smoother collaboration with the rest of your healthcare team.
Moving right along to section 2, the 4 facets of self-awareness, or as I like to think of it, the anatomy of the mind.
So research actually breaks down self-awareness into 4 distinct facets. I want you to treat these kind of like different muscles in your mind. Muscles that you can strengthen or, sometimes accidentally injure. First up is reflection. This is simply the process of actively processing your own thoughts and feelings. Second is insight. This is a big one. It's your ability to actually name your feelings and, crucially, be comfortable with uncomfortable emotions while figuring out your underlying motives. Third, we have rumination. This is that tendency to recall negative events and just dwell on how past situations could have been handled differently. We've all been there, right? And finally, mindfulness. This is the practice of actively paying attention to the here and now, rather than letting your mind wander off into worries and distractions.
All right, section 3, the MBTI personality framework. Let's look at your brand new diagnostic tool. To really develop this awareness, we're going to look at the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI. It evaluates 4 specific pairs of preferences. First, extroversion versus introversion. This basically looks at where you direct your energy. Is it the outer world or your inner world? Then, sensing versus intuition looks at how you prefer to take in information. Are you all about factual realities, or do you lean towards associations and possibilities? Next is thinking versus feeling, which is all about how you make decisions, using objective logic or weighing human values. And finally, judging versus perceiving. This looks at how you approach the outside world. Do you prefer things to be planned and organized, or are you more spontaneous and adaptable?
Now, these preferences combine to form 16 distinct personality types. It takes all those abstract letters and turns them into really concrete profiles. But here's the absolute most important thing to remember. Everyone uses all 8 of these modes at least some of the time. It's totally normal. However, every single individual naturally defaults to a preferred, favorite process. It's really just about where your brain naturally wants to go, like its default setting when you're gathering information or making clinical decisions.
Which brings us to section 4. Let's talk about how your personality actually shapes your awareness, and let's assess those natural strengths.
The data reveals some seriously fascinating patterns about our natural preferences. For instance, if you have preferences for introversion, intuition, and feeling, you'll likely score very high on reflection. If you lean toward extroversion and intuition, you tend to report way higher levels of insight. That's probably because extroverts naturally gain energy from sharing and exploring their feelings with other people. Interestingly, though, individuals who prefer extroversion and thinking might spend a bit too much time on rumination, really dwelling on past negative events. And as for mindfulness, judging types generally report higher levels than perceiving types. Perceiving types might actually find it a bit more challenging to stay grounded in the present moment without their minds wandering off. So your personality literally predisposes you to excel at certain types of awareness while maybe struggling a bit with others. So you might be wondering, why go to all the trouble of mapping this out? Well, self-awareness is kind of a double-edged sword. On one side, the advantages are absolutely incredible. You understand your own motivations, you can seamlessly adapt your behavior to meet a patient's exact needs, and you show improved confidence and leadership. It's a real game changer. But on the flip side, the injuries to those mental muscles, they are very real. If you lean heavily into rumination, for example, you risk overthinking, dwelling on negativity, or getting hit with total analysis paralysis. And honestly, that is the absolute last thing you want when a patient is in pain on your treatment table and you need to act fast.
All right, let's look at the fix in Section 5, Methods for Effective Development. This is your personal treatment plan.
Now, the research reveals a really fascinating disconnect here. The methods people use the most often, like asking for feedback from peers, family, or managers, are actually the least effective ways to build self-awareness. Crazy, right? If you want the real insider advantage, you need structured, objective methods. We're talking about completing personality questionnaires like the MBTI, seeking professional coaching, or even taking training to become a coach yourself. The data shows these yield far better results than just asking your friends how they think you're doing.
The research also offers some amazing tailored alternative strategies depending on your specific type. For instance, are you someone who scores highly on the reflection scale, like, say, those with an INFJ preference? If so, the data actually shows that journaling is a remarkably effective strategy for you. Just keeping a written record of your clinical highs and lows, your questions, and your daily discoveries acts as a super powerful development tool specifically customized for how your brain works.
Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Applying Type to Practice. Let's take all this theory straight into the clinic.
When you actually take the time to understand your MBTI type and how it affects your self-awareness, the results are just incredibly practical. The research highlights this perfectly, noting that participants reported being better able to capitalize on their strengths and feeling more confident in both their personal and work lives. For you, stepping into the clinic, this means intentionally managing your communication. It means knowing exactly when you need to step back and process a situation and when you need to lean right in. It is literally the difference between burning out from emotional exhaustion and truly thriving in your practice.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer, and now I'm handing the baton over to you. I want to leave you with a provocative thought to carry straight into your class activities today. How will your validated MBTI type change your approach to a difficult patient tomorrow? Think about it. If you know you're prone to rumination, how are you going to reset between appointments? Or if you know you excel at reflection, but maybe struggle a bit with in-the-moment mindfulness, what specific strategies will you use to stay present? Understanding your own mind is the ultimate clinical edge. Make sure you use it. Have an awesome class discussion, and I'll catch you next time.